Planet Konglong 2025, mountains and two fighting silhouettes can be seen in the distance, and unusual sounds of blows can be heard. Two characters are fighting and the sounds of a sword cutting the air are heard from afar. One of them is confused why the second one wants to kill him. And right there we see how a juicy girl takes off her hood, and under it you can see the sister of the first character. The sister comes up to him and hugs him. Our first character blushes. But then she tells him about how 5,000 years ago he was a king on Earth and how they, together, when he was a king and the commander of God, saved different planets from disasters. She didn't want to be just his older sister, and believed that he was very cruel because he rejects her. She was ready to just die with him. She looked at him with a distraught look. Immediately there is a very big explosion. Our main character is wounded. He does not understand whether his sister is really ready to kill him simply because she will never be able to have him around. This is even more cruel in his opinion. He decides that he needs to go underground in order to restore his health and come back with new strength. Planet Konglong was a devastated planet, but the immortal emperor decided to restore his health. His aura went far beyond his limits, and made Konglong a planet on which human-like creatures live. They considered Character 1 as the father of the creator as a god. 300 years later, creatures from the planet Blue Star migrated to this place. They came to the cities of the planet Konglong and began to live here. But the creatures who already lived here called them demons. Year 2525, Planet Konglong. The character is alone in shock. He does not understand how this happened. How did the planet become like this? Everything that is in this world is connected to it. He asks himself whether this is the world that he created with his divine powers. A small shop is visible. The sweet girl at the checkout with bewilderment tells our character that she respects his love for traditional attire. But perhaps these days are no longer the same. Our character hands her 500-year-old bills. He wants to buy food for himself. The girl is perplexed. He is ready to pay with money that is 500 years old to buy 10 units of food. She asks our hero if he understands that they have nothing to give him back. Nearby you can see a stunning blonde in a red dress. She asked our hero to return his ancient money because she was ready to pay for it. The girl advises our hero to be more careful in the future, and calls him a little demon. Our hero is perplexed. Turning to our hero with her most beautiful nut in a mini skirt, she tells him bye and leaves. But the thought got into our hero's head why they called him a demon. Our hero is shocked that generations have changed. His money from the past is no longer in use, and everything that was so familiar to him has changed. Our hero hears unusual sounds and looks into the distance. Suddenly he notices an unusual creature with blue wings on the roof chasing an incredibly attractive girl and asks himself if this is true. Immediately we can see from close up this beautiful girl with unusual ears, large watermelons and incredible shapes, as well as the creature that is chasing her. This unusual creature shouts after her that she will not be able to kill and calls her a shitty fox. He is chasing her because of some kind of serum. Our character, seeing all this, understands that the blue creature with wings is not from this planet because his aura is wrong. Unusual creatures catches up with a cute girl from behind and swings. She receives a terrible blow. She drives into a pillar that leaves a trace of the blow on this concrete product. Based on the cultivation level, In Xiaoru should be a cultivator at the initial stage of Qinqin, which is considered the most ordinary person. But this person used drugs to increase his potential, and quickly reach a power equal to the average level of Qinqin. A terrible blue creature has already come close and is ready to strike again. But then our beautiful girl was not at a loss, took out a gun, and told him that times had changed, calling him an idiot. The gun emits a powerful blue shot, but the blue creature doesn't seem to care. Our girl is simply in shock. The demon reaches out his hand and grabs our girl by the hand. He tells her that she cannot escape from him. The fox is simply shocked that he was able to dodge her shot. She can't believe it. But our main character feels his connection with her, and he is ready to help her escape. With one powerful blow he demolishes the demon. Our dear fox is at a loss as to who saved her. But then she hears the question, does she need help? Our main character comes closer, and she thinks to herself in shock if this is really the little demon that she paid for in the store. Address your savior in very sweet words. She asks if he would like to join her and go with her to the hotel for a small talk, thinking that she can make him faint and everything will calm down. Seeing that the girl is too loving, our hero refuses to go anywhere with a cute sexy fox. And I would go and talk to her a couple of times, but oh well, let's move on. He tells her not to be offended. and is already ready to leave when she grabs his hand and, looking straight into his eyes with her watermelon, says that in the hotel he can do whatever he wants with her. The fox falls to the ground in shock and loudly asks if he is a man, because no man would refuse such a thing, or maybe he hasn't completed the transformation. But our hero, without flinching an eye, replies that not every man likes this. Fool, I would like it, but oh well. 3 running guys are visible in the distance, and our hero asks in bewilderment if there is anyone here. A well-groomed guy in a suit asks what our hero is doing here, shining a flashlight in his face. The fox cuddles up to our hero, and immediately these 3 officers recognize her and admire her costume. Our cute fox tells the officer that she and her boyfriend are returning from a party, and out of nowhere a demon attacked them, immediately accusing them of incompetence. Xia Guixian is shocked that the police know her. A logical question immediately pops up in his mind. Is she a star? The officer immediately says that something is changing, because even the sky has changed a lot today, and no one has any idea what will happen to the demons in the south. The fox agrees with everything that has been said and tells the officer to take the demon and organize a car for her and her boyfriend. They were given a car and they both sped away in it further from this place through the city at night. For all the troubles on the planet, our hero blames himself, thinking that this is probably a consequence of his arrival, and the fox only thinks that this idiot is quite handsome. Xia Guixian understands that his injuries are still not fully healed. The fox touches his waist cutely, which incredibly surprises him and makes him scream in surprise, asking what the fox is doing. The sane one, without hesitation, clasps herself onto his lap, showing off her gorgeous legs and stockings that perfectly match her outfit. The driver is surprised because Lisa is one of the coldest female presidents in Sandu City, although she is not so cold with a guy. Immediately our hero, incredibly embarrassed, tells the fox to move away. The fox thinks what race he is, because she still couldn't figure it out, even though she touched him to see if he had a tail. After 20 years of living as an ordinary cold girl, her fox nature was successfully defeated by him. Their car drives up to a huge house and they get out. Gently touching our hero's chin, he is informed that at present people and the descendants of God are enemies, and he will not be able to reveal his origin so easily. And the fox also presses on the fact that he does not have a document with him that could confirm his identity, and not a single penny. But in gratitude for the help that Xia Guixian gave her today, she will help solve all his problems. Telling our hero to follow her, she walks up to the entrance to this gigantic mansion, in the courtyard of which there are 2 fountains. Opening the door, she bows and meets a huge number of people who called her a master. Xia Guixian is surprised how big everything is in this house. Immediately one of the people in her house is surprised and somewhat angry that she brought some wild guy with her. The main character immediately notices that the guy's eyes are filled with jealousy and anger. The fox calls our hero and gives him a bracelet, immediately informing him that thanks to him he will be able to spend money from her bank account. Turning around beautifully, showing all her charms, she reports that money is the least of the problems, and that it will be more difficult to deal with his personality. But everything will be fine because she has connections. Xia Guixian puts on the bracelet, and activating it, sees cells for filling in personal information. The fox informs him that first they must create his profile, and for this they need Xia Guixian to provide real information about himself. Our hero says that most likely no one will believe what he can tell about his experience, immediately realizing that the fox is just trying to find out his past. The fox, bending down and showing her stunning figure, asks him in a joking manner why no one will believe. Maybe he created a residence and all the women dreamed of warming his bed. Or maybe his master is currently immortal. Xia Guixian, who, unlike me, was not at a loss at the sight of such a rear bumper, replies that Lisa was quite accurate with her statements. The fox screams in disbelief and demands that Xia Guixian stop talking nonsense and talk about his childhood. And then our hero begins to tell that he was born in the Xia dynasty and was a prince, and after his father left the throne he became a full-fledged king. Not believing everything told, the fox asks for permission to create a story. Coming close to our hero with her chest, the fox touching his face says that she will guess everything even if Xia Guixian does not tell her. The angry fox asks if he is a descendant of God, who 24 years ago went north as a young animal because of the war with people. Xia Guixian doesn't understand why the fox is testing him again, because she doesn't want to believe his words even when he's telling the truth. The fox has finished creating the story. Now she just needs to find some friend to enter all this information into the system. This will take her several days, Our hero thanks for the help with creating his personality, and is ready to provide some service to his lady in return for this help. The fox remains perplexed because she doesn't understand how a person who doesn't even have a personality can help her. She's never met someone like him before, and she doesn't know what he could do for her. After all, what huge beautiful melons she has. These are even watermelons. Our hero grins majestically at the fact that he now needs an identity and declares that he is the immortal Emperor Xiaogui Xian. Lisa grins at his statement that he is the emperor and says that from now on she will call him Cindy. Our emperor is simply shocked by such impudence. Having changed his hairstyle and clothes, he asks what else should he tell about the war between people and the descendants of God. The fox, of course, is very surprised and asks him if he really doesn't know anything about this. But it's okay, she, like an older sister, will tell him about it. And then the fox begins to tell that 200 years ago people arrived from the planet Blue Star. They landed and began to live in Sunlong at first. Everyone thought that everyone would coexist in harmony. But people took everything upon themselves. The indigenous people could only compromise and live in a corner. Xiaogui Xian asked in shock if technology was really able to capture even what was immortal. And the fox, understanding all his mixed feelings, tells him that times have changed, calling him Cindy. Some stuffed animal with pink hair looks at the screen picture and sees President Yin Ping there and calls her Little Yin, noting that she brought the man back. The next day, her aunt comes to President Yin. We see a bunch of guards. One of the guards knocks on the door and tells President Yin that her aunt has arrived. Beautiful physique Yin and Xiaogui Xian are lying in bed and sleeping, but then she gets up and screams in surprise what Xiaogui Xian is doing in her bed. Yin kicks him out of her room, calling him a pervert. She is very angry with Xiaogui Xian, because before this there was no man in her bed. She tells Xiaogui Xian that he looks like a very nice guy, but in fact he is a pervert, while throwing her bra at him. Yin says he can't show his face here, otherwise her reputation will be disgraced. Xiaogui Xian immediately notices that her reputation has long since disappeared and that these people have come for him. A woman with beautiful shapes in a nice beautiful dress with black long stockings is very indignant, whereas President Yin and one of the butlers reports that Yin will come soon. The president immediately appears from behind and says that this is a big surprise for her, and immediately says that she should have been warned if her aunt wanted to come. Her aunt is incredibly annoyed when she sees her remembering some situation with her brother. Tells her that she just didn't want to bother her at first. She thinks that she will be home when the sun rises and asks if there are any reasons why Sangyu branch is doing so well. The president says that she will personally speak about all the company's successes at the meeting of directors. She also says that there is no need for the second aunt to create problems and worry about it. Immediately she notices a guy who looks like the attacker from whom our emperor saved her. The president asks himself the question, since when is her second aunt connected with the Zhou family apparently? This time she did not come to her with good intentions. Her aunt yells at her and asks if she can hear her. Because the drug she gave to her family only lasts 3 minutes, how could the military let something like this pass? The president tells her to take it herself and make some changes for public sale to residents. Her aunt is wildly indignant, saying who will buy it? Men who want to impress their wives with their skills. And then the president says that everything is correct. They have already found the market, and let them act as they want. Immediately her aunt is disappointed and says that she is a woman and really needs a man nearby, and invites her to marry for arranged and political reasons in order to unite with the Zhou family. Yin is shocked by this proposal and says that it's the 26th century, and she is being offered such ancient backward methods. But her aunt also tells her that she has some kind of overreaction. Maybe it's because the man she brought last night went home. Yin is outraged by the interference in her life and says that she is already 24 years old and advises her second aunt not to organize parties and banquets every night. The second aunt replies that she is talking some nonsense. But then she replies that she heard that the second aunt found a couple of strong men with a beautiful body. Her aunt immediately replies that these are just bodyguards. But Yin, without being confused, says that then her boyfriend is also just a bodyguard. Immediately her aunt decided to take her to show off and says that if he is still a bodyguard, let him come out to them and do a little training with her bodyguards. She wants to see his abilities. Yin agrees, but in her head she understands that Xiaogui Xian is just a small demon who recently came from the mountains. It's more difficult than the male voice itself that screams, "Darling, who is that looking lady? She woke me up too early in the morning." Auntie was incredibly angry, who allowed themselves to call her that. Xia Guixian comes down the stairs towards them, and her aunt is simply in shock. She asks? This young handsome guy is really her bodyguard, looking at him with loving eyes. Confused, Ian asks if such a handsome guy can work as a bodyguard. Smirking, Auntie asks if this young man is really capable of being a bodyguard, to which Ian of course replies yes. Auntie, who doubts Ian's words, orders her bodyguard to attack Xia Guixian. The guard obediently complies with the demands and attacks our main character. But he didn't even flinch in a nightgown, and performed some strange actions with his fingers. Immediately the guard turns into the same blue demon who attacked Ian, and everyone is suddenly surprised that he is a modified person. Auntie and Ian screamed in surprise because they did not expect that her bodyguard would be a modified human. Out of nowhere, Xia Guixian appears in front of the demon's face. But then the demon asks him, what is he using to stop his real body? The demon attacks with a blue beam from its mouth, but Ian immediately runs and shouts stop. The demon, of course, doesn't listen and shoots at Xia Guixian, but that's where they come from. Ian already appears in front of him, ready to expose her body to save him. And now it would seem that death is near. Then a blue protective dome appears that was created by Xia Guixian. This dome saved him, and this is exactly what he did with his fingers. Although with such a beautiful girl it would be possible to do something more interesting with his fingers. The entire demonic attack flies back to the demon, and he simply falls powerless to the floor, struck by his own ray. And let your eyes down. It's strange that it wasn't on the fox's, but that our character thought about the fact that the fox put her body in front of him to save him. Ian approaches the demon and sees that the top is rising from it into some kind of high-voltage incomprehensible lines. And that is why she proposes to hand over the demon to the military. And out of nowhere, her good sweet aunt offers to return the demon to where he came from so as not to harm the whole family because they have a lot of enemies. But Chanterelle does not agree and says that she is a little upset in her family because they tried to arrange a wedding for her with the Zhou family. And her cunning auntie says that really the boy from the Zhou family is not worthy of such a beauty, and she will find her someone better. Ian says that researching a modified human is a taboo without the army. But her auntie doesn't think much about it, and when Ian says that even if the Zhou family is very rich and powerful, they cannot have connections with them because the army is their biggest client, then we can see the anger on her aunt's face. The aunt softened her vision a little and said that the wedding was possible and could be postponed, but they urgently need to finish work on the drug because they have an agreement with the military. If they cannot fulfill it, then they will have to go to a military court. Ian says that creating a new drug is not so easy. But if she can create it, then she won't have to go to the Zhou family, so she has already learned her lesson in the subway. Xia Guixian says that the drug is a small matter, but then Foxy tells him not to try to pretend to be a tough macho. Suddenly they hear some movement from the side and everyone carefully turns around and looks in this direction. But then the inexplicably attractive Yan Wuyu suddenly appears and asks our main character whether he really considers himself cool enough to name a military drug some little thing. Xia Guixian is a little surprised because he did not expect to meet such a strong person on that Sunlong planet, and believes that he may not be fully human. Auntie extends her hand to Yan Wuyu and calls her commander, but she passes by without even looking at her side. The commander approaches our main character and asks if he could come up with a drug for military use, to which he boldly replies without even thinking that he could. Chanterelle tries to intervene in their conversation, but she doesn't really succeed. Yan Wuyu asks our hero if he is ready to bet the size of his life on this, to which he replies that of course he is ready. Chanterelle, of course, again tries to interfere in their conversation, but she still doesn't succeed. Yan Wuyu and Xia Guixian shake hands while Chanterelle persuades her sister not to even pay attention to her boyfriend because he doesn't know anything about drugs. Already in the next picture we see how Auntie is very angry, telling everyone to listen to what people are saying. Especially she addresses Commander Yen because drugs are their family business. Well, the commander, not one of the timid ones, immediately prescribes bream for the aunt, which makes her fall near the door. The captain immediately declares that there is no need to make such drugs. This is a matter for the military and not their families. And who even gave him the right to be so arrogant about this? After all, they are just support in this matter for the army. But immediately the branched auntie replies that the commander is nothing more than just a dirty mixture of human divine blood. The commander became incredibly angry. Everything around became fire. But then Auntie realized that she might have gotten a little carried away in her statements, and admitted that she was wrong. Of course, in complete fear. The commander asks the ant to watch her words and be more restrained, like her. The commander kicks out all unmodified people, saying that they must leave, otherwise they will die. In a wild hurry, the ant's bodyguards take her from the house. Xia Guixian admits to himself that the commander has taken all his attention, and she, in turn, says that ordinary people will have to fight for the right to live on this planet, focusing on the fact that only 200 years have passed and everything has gone downhill unexpectedly. The fox says that this is all good, of course, but the commander shouldn't be so cruel, and gently hugs her from behind by the waist. And at this moment I have already fallen out of this world because I really wanted to be there, and use it already, and just look at what watermelons at the commander's. Immediately the commander takes the fox by the cheeks, and says that she still hasn't scolded her yet, although she also had the audacity to ask the commander to create a personality for her. The fox screamed that she was in pain, and that she was really working very hard on the drug. The action moves to the garden. The commander is surprised that the Zhou family is researching modified people and reports that it will be very difficult to negotiate with them because they have support from the military. The commander asks Xiu for help. The tern asks how she can help, to which she hears a very strange answer. She must seduce Zhou Pengqing. The incredible fox is outraged by this. Then the action moves to the laboratory where scientists ask the chanterelle if she is sure that this is normal, which means that they began to use Chinese herbs. Very, very unusual, and this in turn is very important. A fox in a very sexy scientific robe asks her scientists what they even know because this is alchemy. They of course try to object, but nothing works for them. Meanwhile, the test tube heated up to a temperature of 666 degrees, and scientists asked in bewilderment, since when did the test tube begin to be used instead of a furnace in alchemy to create tablets? But the president replies that this is the latest method for processing tablets. The fox asks herself why in the end she believed in this nonsense that the guys are talking about. Xia Guixian says it's just creating a low-level drug to eliminate the side effects of gene-altering drugs, which is quite simple. You need to grind the qingtan into pulp and heat these qinghua leaves for 2 hours at a constant temperature. We again move to the laboratory where they tell the president to quickly take a look because something unusual happened in the test tube. You can see some unusual pink ball. All the scientists are shocked because it really worked. They go to the computer and Chanterelle asks if it really works. Scientists report that if there are no errors, then this pill can help with a very large number of negative effects after genetic modification. Scientists ask the fox what scientist gave her such a hint to get such incredible results. The fox, in turn, is very surprised when they hear that some scientist gave her this hint. The action moves to the suburban ecological park. Xia Guixian says that when he was seriously injured in the past, he fled from this area to the core of the earth to restore his health. He is also very surprised that Yin Xiuru turned this place into an ecological park. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a large pink tiger appears behind our hero and heads towards him. With one deft uppercut, without even looking at the tiger, our hero was able to pacify him. Xia Guixian is surprised that the tiger has consciousness, and thinks that it is possible that he influenced this with his healing process. Suddenly, unexpectedly, our hero hears someone shouting from behind him. It's Yin running towards him. She asks him how strong the recipe he gave her was. He, in turn, is surprised and asks why this question. Was it ineffective? And without waiting for an answer, he says that he can give her another recipe, because there are many others. Yin tried to answer him that everything was fine, but she was shocked by the fact that there are more methods for creating the drug. Yin is a little shocked, but then someone writes to her on her bracelet, and we see a large number of messages from different users demanding her presence. Xia Guixian asks what these old and dirty old men want, but Yin says write pinyin and think about it yourself. Our main character wonders if these old idiots are. The commander tells our protagonist that the Zhou family chose this place for research on modified humans because this place is historically important. The commander says that today is the birthday of one of the Zhou family and most likely the security will be weaker than usual. So he needs to distract him a little so that the commanders of her team can go into the laboratory and study everything there, to which the fox, of course, agrees. Yin tells our main character that it's time for dinner and asks him if he wouldn't mind going with her for free dinner, to which he agrees. Yin notes that to go to a birthday party she needs a gift, but she is not going to give anything good, to which our hero says that he will prepare a gift for her that he will definitely like. To which Ian, of course, agrees and says that he will leave this question to our hero. Already in the next scene, our heroes are heading to the birthday party. Xia Guixian asks a question if it doesn't look suspicious that he follows the fox everywhere, to which she replies that with her status there is nothing strange in having a bodyguard follow her everywhere. Ian admires how Xia Guixian looks if he dresses up a little. They have already arrived at the place where the birthday party will be held, and the butler shows them the way. At the sight of Ian, all the men in the hall are incredibly surprised and dream that she is also a woman. Ian in a purple outfit with a bust, but Xia Guixian does not see anything unusual in her beauty because she is a demon fox, and how can she even be ugly? Birthday people greet their guests from afar, says that he hasn't seen the fox for a long time, and says that she is still just as beautiful. And Ian gives the birthday boy a gift and congratulates him on his birthday. Without thinking twice, he opens the box and sees a glowing object there. He is very surprised by the gift, but the fox tells him that it is a protective magic shield that will save him from a pistol shot. Fox immediately shoots at this object, and it reflects her shot, to which all the guests say in shock that this is a very good shield and at the same time very rare. Some of the guests saw this as disrespect for the family, but the birthday boy, grinning, rejoices at this because he believes that in front of him is just a crazy woman with a good body. The commanders of her team found a place to which they can completely avoid the guards and go straight to the laboratory, to which the commander gives the order to begin work and says that she will cover her people. Two men quickly approach and make a hole in it with their palms in order to enter the laboratory. The commander orders to break the wall and open the entrance to the laboratory. Her people obediently do everything. I again open the door to the laboratory with their palms upon entering the laboratory. They see a large test in which something is floating, but at the same time they didn't get a single living one in their field of vision. But that all people, of course, are a little surprised. The commander understands that the Zhou family cleared everything out of this place before leaving and did not leave any useful information. Well, he believes that in this kind of experiments, in any case, soulless bodies should have remained because it would be impossible to hide them all. Here the commander is told that this place is just a cover, and the real entrance to the laboratory is deep underground under the family's house, which we are convinced of when we see the house and underground paths. At the birthday party, everyone is having fun, and only the foxes come up with the idea of going to check in the direction of Sister Yin, to which the surprised Xia Guixian asks if she really thinks what can happen. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the birthday boy approaches Ian and asks if Ian will do him the honor of dancing with him, to which he immediately replies that she has a partner and tells our hero to go dance. The birthday boy takes them, laughs, and asks if she is sure that her bodyguards can dance. I notice that this is not a good idea, to which Ian replies that even if he doesn't know how to dance, she will teach him everything. Already on the dance floor, she tells him to just follow her, to which he doesn't pay attention, starts his dance and asks that maybe she should learn something. Ian is incredibly surprised that Xia Guixian can dance and thinks that he learned the dance especially for her. Our hero begins to tell her about enlightenment, to which she is of course incredibly surprised. I think that if I dance with such a beauty, he manages to talk about enlightenment. All the women in the room are incredibly surprised that Ian found a bodyguard, and many of them fantasize about a night with him. The birthday boy is dissatisfied, believing that Ian finally provoked him, but then out of nowhere one of his people appears and tells him that someone has invaded their secret passage. The birthday boy says that it's time to stop pretending. At the same time, the commander and her team are already entering her laboratory. Feeling the approach of energy that is becoming more and more intense, she tells her team to be ready and hurry. They enter the laboratory and see something unusual. The commander is very surprised that there is a place so deep underground. Under the entrance you can see 4 mages who are hanging in the air above some kind of pentagram, and below them there is a huge number of different wild creatures. All mages are in the epicenter of a huge red flame. These magina strongly catalyze the followers of God, which leads to the formation of these terrible monsters. The general from the bridge shouts that these are people, but suddenly someone comes from behind and says that she misunderstood everything, although what can be misunderstood here? Some kind of villain with large watermelons in a yellow dress fluttering above the ground and, like magic, surrounded by red flames, says that all the spilled blood is needed for evolution. She said that all people in Sangyu City will be turned into such monsters, and all they do is just purify the blood by removing it by force from this kind of creatures. The commander is interested. And they do all this in order to die with a pure soul. The stranger replies that, of course, after purification they will take away their sacred blood from these animals. This girl declares that they don't want to harm anyone. Well, yes, of course we believe. We know that you are very cunning, and declares that all this is just a little connected with the Zhou family, and reminds that they both have a drop of the blood of God's followers flowing in them. A sweet girl asks the commander to forget everything he saw like a bad dream and leave here when they finish. The commander, in turn, declares that he does not trust the nonsense of this lady. The commander considers it unacceptable what he is doing here and declares that if these are really the descendants of the gods, then these will be people who will force them to take on the thirst for blood. We're able to come to an agreement. The lady declares that in this case the commander will have to lose his life, to which the commander looks and listens in surprise. Suddenly all the magicians direct their powers upward and then a skull appears, and then this flying lady challenges the commander, telling her that she is ready to see what she can do. The commander, looking at all this, grins and says that this is not a high enough level of skills for her, and then their battle begins. All on fire, some swords appear which she, with the help of her divine power, directs towards the commander, and immediately throws them and they fly at her at high speed. But the commander reflects this attack with the help of his flame, because as soon as the swords fall into the range of her flame, they immediately melt. The lady who attacked her is incredibly surprised by the temperature that the commander was able to do. I also think about what will also happen to those who sleep with her at such a temperature. Gathering his strength into a fist, the commander attacks with all the power of fire. The attacking lady thinks that all this is certainly not good, but she cannot allow the commander to leave with why she came. Having attacked each other in flight, the attacking lady casts a spell of some kind of drop of blood that touches our commander's finger, from which her expression immediately changed. And the first thought was that this is not very good. The lady says that she is not an opponent for the commander of a military division, immediately crosses her arms and casts a spell, subsequently which rivers of blood form some kind of glowing blood ball. And the spell turns out to be a drop of blood, which of course greatly surprises the commander. Immediately she falls into a stupor. How can such a large sea of blood be just an ordinary drop? The lady rises even higher, and we see a small part of that same drop of blood that even glows, and at that moment she pulls this drop between her fingers and says that they spent many years to cleanse this small drop of holy blood. The lady is ready to use this drop of blood and says that it's time to show Commander Yen your place. At the same moment this drop of blood approaches her forehead, and she obediently waits until they touch each other, and says that this saved them from many problems. After a drop of blood touched her forehead, small blood lines began to be visible around her, which completely enveloped the entire space around her. Her subjects congratulate her because now the holy blood flows in her, and therefore they believe that now the gods will bow to her, because in her body the holy Tao. Her people say that now this lady will have great power. The gods must think that this is the blood of their mothers. But what does she think that now all the gods will call her mother if this blood flows through her veins? Xia Guixian thinks that this is the same blood that flowed out of him when he was injured so long ago, and immediately asks the question, what will this lady call him if all the gods call her mother? She is, of course, shocked by the unusual and unexpected appearance of Xia Guixian next to her, and immediately asks our hero who he is and how he got here. Na says that since our main character saw something that he should not have seen, he must die. She takes out her enchanted sword that glows pink. Immediately she releases the sword from her hand. Pink lines appear around her, and she wonders what is happening and why her body no longer obeys her. Her sword sticks into the ground and she, along with our main character, lands on the ground. Suddenly she falls to her knees and calls our main character father. She is completely in shock. After all, she has never met such a strong deity before. Everything around them is rapidly changing. Our main character rises up and she, on her knees, asks him the question of who he is after all, clearly being in a state of shock. The lady has a logical question. Could it be the immortal god over the goddess Wuxiang? And why does she feel that she must surrender to him with all her heart? Xia Guixian did not expect that his blood would have such a strong effect, and having an extra daughter would be too troublesome for him. So he decides to touch her head with his finger while she is kneeling, and suddenly red lines appear as if it was blood coming out of her heads. Our hero reports that from now on he can easily find her no matter where she is, even if she is 10 lands away from here. To which the lady, of course, agrees. because she simply has no other way out of this situation. And of course she has the question arises why she cannot call him father, and how she will be a slave. Xia Guixian bends over her and asks who she is and where she comes from, while the girl is still kneeling in front of him. She replies that she is Ling Moxue and her occupation is upstairs. That is, in the ordinary world it is to be an actress. Our hero thinks that she is most likely a star in her field because she looks very, very good. Xia Guixian says not to be upset, and that she will just have to be an obedient girl, to which she looks with surprised eyes. She thinks it's all over. She kept her innocence for more than 20 years and today she will lose it here. Ling Moxue looks straight at him, and thinks that he looks very attractive, and that she doesn't look bad either. Our main character figured out their plan about the mutated monsters and with a slight movement of his hand touches her forehead with his finger. At the same moment the place of contact begins to glow. The lady is incredibly surprised by our hero's ability to work with his fingers. But he immediately leaves saying that if he has questions, he can find her. The lady is incredibly dumbfounded and her legs are crossed and her face expresses surprise. The lady asks him if he told her to be obedient just to do this. We see how the birthday boy goes somewhere and says to Ian on this important day one very important phrase, namely, is she ready to marry him? To which she looks at him in surprise as he stands on one knee with a ring in his hands and asks what's going on. Looks like he's just dreaming. The birthday boy tells her not to refuse so quickly, but to first contact her sister because most likely General Yan Wuyue has already been killed, to which Ian remains in complete shock. The fox calls his sister but does not receive an answer and then she, incredibly furious, begins to scream how he could afford to destroy the biggest general in the country. To which the birthday boy replies that you shouldn't blame him, and he just reminds our heroines that he just reminds her that her sister will no longer be able to protect her, and the best decision in this situation would be to accept his marriage proposal. Immediately the birthday boy turns around and begins to slowly leave. And our heroine is left in shock with the question of what this scoundrel wants to do. He immediately stops in the center of attention, lifts some strange object up and says that he is grateful to everyone for celebrating his birthday. He has some kind of new product, and invites everyone to look at it. All the people around him wonder what it is. John is incredibly pleased and immediately replies that it is like a demonic mirror of the gods that can show beings as they are. He decided to show this on an ordinary plant. This plant is xenogenic, but immediately after he points the mirror at it, it turns into an ordinary golden chrysanthemum. The birthday boy is wondering if the people around him think that there may be some gods among them and that this can be reflected in this unusual enchanted mirror. To which people from the audience, of course, in shock, ask him how this is possible. To which the people from the hall react very unusually and say that if this is true, how dare they come after they have been fighting with each other for decades, and that if there's one of the descendants of the gods in this hall, then they will cut him into pieces. To which Ian asks a logical question. Does he know that she is a fox and, in her opinion, this is a threat personally towards her? The fox gets scared and says that this is not very good, and suddenly notices Xia Guixian behind her back. And the fox was not mistaken in her judgment, because the birthday boy decided that as soon as he pointed the mirror in her direction, he would be able to see the real form of the little demon that is Ian, and then everyone would think that she is a criminal because she is protecting the descendants of God, so she will run to him so that he protects her from all the masses who will be angry with her. But something goes wrong and he points his mirror not at Ian but at Xia Guixian. In his thoughts the birthday boy asks him to show his real form. Pointing the mirror at our main character, he simply begins to glow with an unusual yellow color. And the mirror has no effect, to which the birthday boy, of course, simply opens his eyes in shock, not understanding what is happening. And why doesn't his mirror show anything? Ian is also surprised and doesn't understand why the mirror didn't work on him because she knows that he has a different form. She begins to think that this mirror is just an invention of the birthday boy. Xia Guixian takes out his mirror and says that he is just a man and of course his mirror is ineffective. But of course he has the same mirror, only the birthday boy's mirror is female and his is male. Our main character points a mirror at the birthday boy and says that he has been watching him for too long, and he should try too. The birthday boy is immediately interested in what is the purpose of pointing the mirror at him, because he is simply, and then he does not have time to finish his sentence to the end when a shell appears on him and the people from the audience are shocked by everything that is happening. After all, they considered him the same as them. but he turned out to be Turtle Spirit. The birthday boy, of course, is shocked by such changes. He looks in the mirror and is perplexed by what happened and wonders where the turtle shell came from on his back, because he is just an ordinary person. Suddenly all his guests pounced on him and are trying to detain him in order to hand him over to the police. Of course he is not trying to escape, but all the people are running in pursuit of him, except for his loyal subjects who, no matter what, stand up for him. Having realized what happened, the birthday boy understands that it's all over and everyone will think that he is later. He tries to run away so that no one catches him, but out of nowhere Ian appears in front of him, whom he initially wanted to persuade to marry him and declassify so that everyone can see that she too descendant of the gods. Cute Foxy in the same dress with huge watermelons pulled out a gun and pointed it at the birthday boy. He was simply shocked, but Foxy didn't even hesitate to shoot him. Thanks to the gift that the fox made for the birthday boy, he was able to save himself by simply taking out that very shield. Enchanted to fight off bullets, the bullet flew to the birthday boy but could not do anything because he was under the protection of that very gift. They touch each other's hands, crossing them as if they were a couple in love. Then the main character directs his gaze to her and says not to even try because he is exactly who she thinks. Well, the commander, dumbfounded, asks him what he means, looking straight into his eyes, and he's probably looking right at her watermelons. The commander tells him to just admit it, and says that he's doing it as if he's some kind of joker. Then suddenly a fox bursts into the room with juice in her hands and in an incredibly sexy black nightie. Our main character and commander turns in her direction, but she is incredibly happy and simply asks whether Xia Guixian will drink the juice or not. Looking at this whole picture, Chanterelle sees how our main character, together with her sister, who is just dressed in a towel, are holding hands. Chanterelle thinks that she came at a not very opportune moment. The fox is incredibly angry, but at the same time she thinks that I shouldn't get annoyed and freak out. After all, she has absolutely nothing with this person. The commander, being embarrassed, focuses on the fact that the fox took a shower very quickly, which, as we see, was a slight surprise for her. In his head, the commander experiences improbability, thinking that this is already the end. So as not to look the fox in the face, the commander decided to simply leave first and quickly runs out of the room while the fox watches with an open mouth. The fox puts the juice on the table and sits down next to our main character, asking him if her sister's hands are soft, obviously hinting at something more, and it is at this moment that we can again trace her jealousy. To which the imperturbable Xia Guixian replies that her sister has rather soft hands. Foxy becomes incredibly angry, even clenching her fist, asking him if the little girl bothered him. Chanterelle also says that she will leave the house and wish her sister and him good night, obviously hinting that she will leave out of jealousy. But in her head Foxy again calms herself down by saying that this is not her boyfriend and doesn't understand why she is so angry. Although in my opinion everything is obvious here. Xia Guixian resembles a fox that she said that she would give him money. She covers her face with her palm because she is crying, hands him a bracelet with which our main character can pay. Holding out the bracelet, the fox says that everything is fine, and she will give him money. To which our hero replies that he does not need her money. He also says that he knows that there are many houses in the ecological park and he asks to find one for him. To which the surprised fox asks if he is really ready to leave her house to live in an eco park. To which our hero replies without even thinking that he really wants to move because he really likes those places and plus, it will be next to her. The fox is working herself up. I think that he and her sister really had something going on since he is ready to move closer to her. The fox in her head is calling Xia Guixian names, thinking that even if there is a naked woman standing in front of him, he will simply kick her out. Morning came and at breakfast Foxy says that our main character looks at her and asks him if he thinks she's cute, also clarifying that it doesn't matter how cute he is. And she also says that she agrees for him to move in today. But our hero has already changed his mind and notices that she is a woman who lives alone without helpers around the house. She should have someone nearby who could protect her and asks her if she wants to learn immortality. As soon as the fox heard about the technique of immortality, her eyes immediately began to shine and filled with happiness, admiring him a little but not letting it show. She says that she would certainly like to learn the technique of immortality, and asks if she will have a teacher who would teach her this technique. Our hero, looking at her, says that he sees a really great talent in the fox, thereby saying that she is pretty good, but then he says that if she wanted to be his student, then she is immediately unqualified, hinting that she is not ready yet, although he himself this said that she has good talent. The indignant fox looks at him with a rather dissatisfied look and says that she is not entirely happy to call him a master, so let him drink his tea and water. The slightly surprised hero tells the fox to come closer to him so that he can study her techniques and adjust them to her needs. Immediately Xiaogui Xian again used some very strange technique, and his index finger began to glow green. At the same moment, our hero takes the fox by the waist and tells her that she has a good fox talent, and it would be a pity to lose it. Guys, just look at the nut. I have a question for this hero. How did he resist just bam bam? The fox turns to him and says that he wants to touch her in order to tell how strong she is. But this is a little hypocritical considering that he said that he will not accept students, and touching his students is generally not very good. Immediately, with a wave of his hand, our main character raises the fox above the ground with the help of some very beautiful yellow glow, but the fox is of course a little shocked by what is happening. Hovering above the bed in that same yellow glow, the fox in her head is surprised at how easily our hero was able to lift her above the ground. Xiaogui Xian, snapping her fingers, lands the fox on the ground, and around her there are already many robots that worked in her house, and she is very surprised by this. After all her robots are remote controlled. She is surprised and wonders how in such an interesting way our main character can control them all. But our hero calmly sips his drink from a mug and asks her if she has ever heard of a puppet theater. Sitting on the bed, our hero says that she has already destroyed the entire ecological park at home, and that now she has at least a blade of grass that can tie up an enemy for her, to which the incredibly satisfied fox replies that she should try it. Sitting on the bed, the beautiful fox receives a small slap on her head from our hero, and the strap of her nightie flies off her shoulder. Xiaogui Xian says that you need to take good care of all this first, otherwise Yin's mental power may temporarily affect the robot. Immediately we move to the laboratory where we see one of the members of the Zhou family. And behind him is a test tube in which there is a person in some strange blue substance. He is trying to create immortal people because in his opinion, for people to reach this themselves, it will take hundreds of years of genetic evolution. Some unknown man in the same yellow flame that our hero owns says that the body is limited but the mind is infinite, and that is why theoretically life can be endless. At this time, Xiaogui Xian gives Yin an unusual artifact, and says that he will now show her his special technique, and she will feel it for the first time, to which the fox asks in surprise where he got this jade leaf. The unusually beautiful Foxy is very happy with such a gift, we can see it from her face. But then our main character hands her an unusual ring with a very beautiful green ruby in the middle and says that this ring is for storage and this ring is intended specifically for her, because this is a gift from him. The fox took the ring in her hands, notices that this ring is intended for marriage and looking at it in surprise, immediately in her head begins to ask our hero if this is what she is thinking about. In her head there was already a picture of him hugging her and gently touching her with his forehead and her large breasts adjacent to his body. But then she comes to her senses and tells herself not to invent everything so quickly. She presses this ring to her chest in confusion, being incredibly pleased with such a gift. Already in the next price, our main character goes to look at some house and notices that this place is still quite large. He is also attracted by the fact that everything is surrounded by forests and mountains. This is a great place for him to live. With an ordinary wave of his hand, he makes some kind of unusual spell. Out of nowhere, an ancient monastery appears. Entering its territory, our main character calls that same tiger to him. He sits down at the table where he sees 7 mugs and a teapot. At the same time that same giant purple tiger, the size of half a tree, runs towards him. I won't even try to imagine how much he weighs. Xiaogui Xian strokes the tiger and tells him not to worry after everything that happened because he is just his divine father. The main character orders the tiger to simply guard the gate for him, and he will feed him with the energy that the tiger needs so much. As for the fox, Xiaogui Xian felt that her pedigree is not the simplest. Therefore, in the future, she will become a 90th celestial fox. But he thinks that he should help her achieve this a little by giving her a few pills so that she can get there faster. Immediately we see something like a large cauldron and an incredibly juicy nut that looks at this cauldron and ponders what it is. After all, if this is used to create tablets, then almost any herbs can be made more effective. Seeing this girl from the front, We are simply blown away by how big her front bumper is and very beautiful cute thighs. But at this time she thinks that maybe someone deliberately led her to what they wanted. Immediately, out of nowhere, our main character appears with his classic beautiful blue glow, and in his classic outfits. A cute girl turns her head in his direction when she was on her knees and calls him master. Xia Guixian praises this girl for being smart enough not to touch it, otherwise the power that this artifact possesses could send her to the next world 10,000 times. Turning his back, he throws a piece of paper to this girl and says that on this piece of paper there are written some materials that he needs for alchemy and weapons construction that she must find for him. The girl agrees without hesitation and begins to read what is written on the piece of paper. Our main character is also interested in what her heavenly level of religion is and whether she has the highest technology, to which the girl replies that only their masters have such powerful techniques. But he says that it doesn't matter and he will help her become a leader when the time comes. She will show him higher techniques. But what is this guy doing? Does he really want to put his cucumber in every pussy from this manga? Every girl who comes to him is very curvy and ready to do whatever he says. I would very quickly take advantage of this situation. The girl, of course, is very happy and thanks her master, but she thinks that being a leader is of course cool. But she asks our hero to tell her master to remove the slave seal because being a leader is of course cool, but being the leader of other slaves is not very cool. Our main character approaches this girl who is still kneeling in front of him, lifts her chin and puts his cucumber in her mouth. Just kidding. Tells her that she is just his slave and asks if she thinks she is in a good enough position to bargain with him. The girl replies that if this is so, then Mo Shui will only follow him. Then we see how much she likes what our main character touches her. She asks the question of how she can contact her master, that is, with our main character, if she receives those very skills, to which Xia Guixian replies that if she says his name 3 times in a row in her heart, then he will know about it. Why is the girl sitting on her knees still thinking in her thoughts that only God can have such flair and strength as he does and asks the logical question who he is after all? And I wonder why he didn't shove his cucumber deeper in the mouth. Xia Guixian touches his bracelet to answer the call. Beautiful light effects immediately appear around his finger. After he answered we can see that the fox is calling him. He politely asks what happened and she, in a slight panic, tells him that they have small problems. Our main character, I asked what kind of problem they had, received a multivalued answer. The fox said that the Zhou family stated that the reagents they provided were stolen from the research of the Zhou family. It turns out that based on these guesses they filed a lawsuit against the fox's family. The kneeling lady is incredibly surprised that Yin Xiaoru is calling her master. The red-haired lady was just furious thinking that he really was that little white face who was taken care of and thought that his personality was destroyed. While the lady is incredibly furious and the fox is shocked and scared, to put it mildly, Xia Guixian is quite calm and interested in how the Zhou family could afford this, because it is obvious to him that the formula was provided by other persons. Our protagonist realizes that in a network of recent incidents, the Zhou family has literally forced them to stand on the same level as the Yin family and other allies. A very angry fox says that most likely the Zhou family analyzed the medicine recipe they provided and subsequently began to put pressure on people. Also mentions that in light of the latest information found out, her family began to blame her for all the troubles and tell her to hurry up. But as always, our main character remains completely unperturbed and says the foxes are not angry. So that the fox would not be so angry at the main character tells her that he will accompany her back to Beijing to support her. While smiling sweetly, the fox, in turn, remains incredibly satisfied and happy, telling our main character that this is great news. Already in the next picture we see a mansion that looks more like a castle, with beautiful gates and a fence, and a very well-groomed lawn. Right there, Xia Guixian and Yin come out of a beautiful blue car that looks like either a Koenigsegg or a Bugatti. They are both dressed in classic suits, and the fox's even matches the color of the car. Immediately, and with a voice command, Foxy collects her car back into her bracelet. Damn, they have cool advanced technologies. It's interesting that they still assemble everything in the same way, because if that's the case, just think about how easy it has become to collect garbage. It's just an environmental breakthrough. The fox asks our main character if she understands correctly that no one should see her identity as a descendant of God, because in the capital at the moment there are a huge number of people that we can only observe by looking behind them. Xia Guixian turns to the fox, extends his hand to her in which he holds some kind of unusual amulet. He tells her that this magical weapon is ready for her, and that she should put it on, and no one will even notice it. The fox, of course, is again delighted with the gift and thanked our hero as many as 2 times, but then instead of handing her the amulet from hand to hand, he simply carelessly throws it. But to great happiness, the fox catches it. Immediately in her head, foxes are born. Quite a logical question. She begins to wonder why our main character is giving out rings and necklaces. And a second question was also born in her head that she asks herself, do you know what it means for a girl when someone gives her this kind of gifts? At the same moment they reach their destination, where they are met by an identity-checking robot who tells them to politely identify themselves in the system in order to enter. After they've done everything, we can see the real castle. Approaching closer and closer to the castle, they are already next to the steps that lead to the entrance to this very mansion. As soon as they climb the stairs to the door at the entrance to the mansion, they are met by security. Security Captain Wu Yan says that only Miss Ru can enter, and her the accompanying person must remain outside. To which Yin, angry and maybe even a little furious, replies that she will go inside with her boyfriend and no security will be able to stop her. To which the guards are of course very surprised. Suddenly they say from inside that not all the guys can come to the Yin family, and the same voice orders the guards to attack him. The guards obediently do what they were ordered, already grinning and flexing their fists in order to beat our Xia Guixin. And suddenly, right there, the security commander attacks our hero, but trying to hit Xia Guixin, as usual, uses the strength of his finger, and instead of normally blocking the blow, he simply puts his hand with the index finger forward, to which the guard simply touches his finger and flies straight into the door, breaking it and opening it without even wanting to. Then his subordinate approaches the commander, and is very surprised at how their commander, after all, according to him, their commanders are a genetic warrior of the 3rd level of strength, and he cannot just be easily sent to fly with just 1 finger. All the people inside are shocked and look at our main character with their mouths open. At the same time, Chanterelle thinks about how amazing she feels when Xia Guixin is next to her. After all, when he is near, he feels completely safe and is not afraid of even 3 tribunals. Some older man with a mustache and glasses calls our main character impudent, and asks him if he really thinks that if he has a small part of the power, he will be able to walk around the capital. To which the fox immediately answers him in a humiliating form, asking whether he addressed these words to himself, which obviously this older man did not like. But as soon as he tried to say something, the head of the family immediately shut him up. Immediately the head of the family takes the floor and tries to say something to justify what is happening, but Ian, incredibly angry with this whole situation, confronts the head of the family with the fact that they are not resisting what is happening, and he asks if it's all because their family is weak, to which the head of the family, calmly scratching his chin, replies so that she doesn't get angry, because in fact, everything they do to avoid danger. How you, this character reminded me of ours main character because they are both incredibly calm, at least for now. Immediately the head of the family begins to tell that a few days ago a blue dragon appeared in the sky, which, as we can guess, is most likely a harbinger of not the best events. The wars between ethnic groups and the descendants of God stopped and preparations began for a meeting with Father God. If we take a closer look at this picture, we will see some strange and very beautiful creatures, some with horns and sharp teeth, and others without horns. All these strange creatures are looking somewhere. It was also said that when Father God comes, all the other gods will have a leader, after which the war of the gods with people is simply inevitable. And we can see in the picture as if some kind of throne located between 2 burning columns, and in front of them some people are sitting and bowing, strange ugly creatures. Foxy is immediately interested because, in her opinion, the head of the family prefers that people think that it was she who stole the potion from the Zhou family, and states that she really would not want people to think that she is somehow connected with Father God. The head of the family agrees with everything that has been said and says to give a certain amount of money to the Zhou family so that they shut their mouths, and wonder if it would be better if they left it on the doorstep. Just then the head declares that the family has decided to pay compensation for the future role of executive vice president in a company that creates a virtual game, and for all the inconvenience caused. Well, the man sitting next to him with a mustache and glasses tells the patriarch to think twice because this is their main property, to which the clearly irritated head of the family tells him to shut up. Also addressed to the mustachioed man, Another complaint from the head of the family for the fact that he intimidates and does not allow the younger generation of the family to live normally. Also asking him if it's not enough for him that he interferes with the young, and also asking whether he really thinks that he has a large number respect. Immediately after the head of the family said everything to the mustachioed one, he switches his gaze to Xia Guixian and thinks that his strength is so great that he looks as if he is then from God in the late stage of Tingyan. The head of the family imagines our hero with his hand raised, red eyes and all in flames, as if he were some kind of villain. Although it is not clear why exactly he imagined him this way, he also thinks that while he is firmly attached to the Yin family, but in one day the wind may change and they will become treasures, implying that their value will increase. Sitting on the couch and watching TV, our hero laughs and says to the foxes that he could not imagine that the Yin family is not stupid. Well, the fox says that she wanted to help him, but she didn't expect that he was the patriarch who also planned to deceive the Zhou family. The fox tells our hero that she would like the Yin family to be stupid so that they can part with them with good reason and save themselves from many problems after that. She also states that after everything she is just a fake member of the Yin family who changed her when she was still a child and her parents don't even know who he is. But at this time Xia Guixian is watching TV without any emotions and doesn't even bother to respond to how the fox poured out her soul to him, to which she is, of course, incredibly indignant and not very angry. Shouts out to our main character that he doesn't pay attention at all to how she was upset when she told him this, and how she is now. But when our main character doesn't pay attention to her even after she directly told him about it, she gets even angrier and tells him that he's just watching TV. But we know that he's not just watching TV, but also eating chips. Here we see that he is watching on TV an episode of some film with the participation of the same red-haired girl who was kneeling in front of him. You notice this with a fox. Tell him that he is watching an episode in which Ling Moshua plays and tells him that this is a work that shows the Tangking period of the Xia dynasty, telling him that this is really rarely shown. And our main character points his fingers at the actress's watermelons and says that he doesn't know if he'll be able to see how others play him next time. The fox tells our hero that this is just a short drama that is based on the novel Xia dynasty. They start talking about this film, and then the question arises. Why, if the shot is completely restored, he cannot see Taikang? Chanterelle says that in her opinion there is something missing here because everything they see does not correspond to the original description, and says that in the original books there were two main characters, a woman and a man, who were like immortals, and she asks the question where could she find the actors. But then she realizes that Xia Guixian could really be a good actor and directly tells him about this. The future is a little admiring. And right there our hero lights up with this idea and says that he could act from himself. Remarking that this is a lot of fun with his eyes lighting up, our main character simply disappears, which of course shocks Yin, causing her to ask the logical question why he suddenly disappeared. In this picture we see part of the house from which we can hear the fox screaming that this fool left her alone in an empty room. But our main character is not a mistake and he is already flying to that same busty red-haired lady. And what happened next, what she did to him, and what she agreed to do with him, you can find out in the next episode, and if you really want to see the next episode please write about it in the comments. We will definitely read everything, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video, and of course write your opinion about this manga whether you liked it or not.